So I finally finished my latest project for this world, which was basically to redesign this area. So, long story short, there was a really ugly sheep farm on this little island across my base. I moved the sheep farm and decided to put a minigame here instead. Well, when I say minigame, this is actually the first time I've ever done a minigame, so I need to do this right. That means making it bigger and way more complicated than it needs to be. So we're gonna time-lapse the whole thing, naturally. And step one is to clear out an area. And I had the brilliant idea that I wanted this to kind of look similar to the rest of my base where it was in ground. So that's all we're doing here. We're going to dig a giant hole in the ground once again. As I'm digging this, I can briefly describe to you what the purpose of this minigame is. It actually does need to go deep into the ground just because of the way it's designed. I guess I could have had it go above ground, but again, I wanted it to match the rest of my base, so I decided to build it underground. But the whole point of the minigame is to shoot the targets, and whoever gets to the end first wins. Easy peasy. Digging these holes is getting very tiresome, but I can't help it. The builds just look so much better when I put them in ground. Even before I did all of this digging, I had a lot of planning I did, and I had the bright idea to make this build automated, which means lots of redstone, which I am not a redstoner at all, so this was really going out of my comfort zone, which is why I decided to pre-design all of the redstone circuitry so that I could make sure it was working, and that took several hours of prepping because I didn't know what I was doing, but I finally got a working design, and I decided to put it in survival using Lightmatica just because it's going to be a lot easier that way for me. Yeah, I wasn't about to replicate that in survival from memory because it was way too complicated. And for anyone who remembers watching me build the redstone part in a live stream, I think it took us about 7 or 8 hours just to trace over the schematic, so I can't imagine how much longer that would have taken if I had to make it up on the spot. So it's actually not as complicated as it looks. I'm just really bad at compacting my circuitry. But we don't want to look at this mess. We want to cover it up with a nice terraformed hill around the entire area, so I'm working on that now. Although I will say the water right on the edge does scare me a bit. If it happens to leak through into that redstone, I don't know what I'd do. Thankfully, we have been accident-free up to this point, and let's keep it that way. The worst part of this build is done, now we can get to the fun part, which is decorating the minigame itself. So how this minigame works is you shoot the targets, and when you shoot them all on one level, you drop down to the next level, and you do that 2 more times down all 3 levels, you drop to the end, and you win. I will demonstrate that more later, but for now, let's just focus on the building and the styling of it. I figured since my base is in a jungle, we'll just keep it all on the same theme. Jungle themed on the first level, and then it goes into the underwater section, and then below that, we'll enter the crystal cave. Now some of these could have probably been designed better. I was quite limited on the space I had, so they didn't turn out quite like I was hoping, but I still think they're fairly decent considering I did it all in survival, and just kind of made it up. The inside is completely done at this point. I just have to do the outside and beautify this area. And starting off, we have to cover this with a blue glass dome because that's what we used on the other part of our base, so it has to match. Aside from that, there isn't much else to do, but add custom trees. That's the best thing you can do when you have nothing else to do. And we're not going to add just 1 or 2 or 3 trees, we're going to add a whole bunch. I actually don't know exactly how many, but I did want to cover the entire island as much as possible to make it look like it was all forested. The forest isn't quite as thick as I was hoping it would be, not as dense, but it is really hard to get a really good dense forest when doing custom trees, so you kind of have to sacrifice that for the better look of the tree, but overall, I think it turned out super nice. I'm not going to be able to play the game with anyone right now, but I can at least show you how it works by myself, because the nice thing about this minigame is it can be played with 1 or 2 players. Both sides are exactly the same, as you probably noticed. There's just different color themes for each side. Obviously, the objective is to shoot all of the targets and light up all the lights. I've actually always wanted to make a minigame like this, like forever. I've been wanting to do this for so long, but I never really had the redstone knowledge to do it. And I finally just did all the research and finally actually managed to make one of these. In the middle, you'll see I actually do have a little viewing gallery, and that's for if you have other people who can't play, they can actually watch you play. Because it does go underground, it gets a little complicated for spectators to watch. I have those little windows on the inside if people want to kind of spectate as you go. I absolutely love this first level with little fish, and then you drop down under the water and now you're in the underwater scene, and I think it's so cool that you can still see the fish above you. And then we have our giant squid here in the middle. This level probably could stand for some more detail, but I think it still turned out okay. And then dropping down to the 3rd level, of course we have the crystal cave, which could probably also stand a little more detail, but I think it still looks really cool and moody. I kind of wish that light around where I'm standing wasn't there, but can't avoid the skylight coming through from the top, so what are you gonna do? In total, there are 18 targets you have to shoot, and then when you drop down, you win the game. And once you've made it to the end, then all you have to do is simply exit out the back. Now let me go ahead and quickly show you all of the redstone inside of this, because I do believe it is the most redstone I've ever done in anything. Actually, I can guarantee it is the most redstone I've ever done in anything. Oh, by the way, yeah, there is a giant hole here in the hill. I still have to cover that up sometime. But right now it's really handy to get through here so I can fix any of this if anything breaks. So far I have been fortunate enough to have nothing break on me, but it's actually pretty simple even though it looks complicated. You know what, let me just show this to you in a creative world because it'll make a little more sense that way. But please keep in mind, I'm not an expert at this. I just made something that worked for me. If you want to try to make it more compact and better, feel free to do that, but I'll just show you my thought process on it. Well, and not all of this I knew how to do, you know, I kind of had to look up how to do some stuff. Like this, for example, I don't really need this comparator here. That's really just to set the difficulty of the target. But how it works is you shoot the target, it's going to ring the note, obviously, come over here and turn this constant signal on to keep this lit up. When this is lit up, it pushes the redstone block over there, which turns off this torch, which turns off the signal that leads up to the pistons holding the hay bales. So once all of those purple signals are turned off, which means all of the targets have been hit, then the hay bales will open up and drop you to the next level. So if I come over here, this is the exact same thing. I hit the target, it's going to trigger all of that, and now both of those torches are not lit. So the hay bales open up. So that is the basic circuit for how I got the floor to drop, and then this is just the reset button. The best way I found out to do this was because I have a constant signal, I thought it would be easier just to cut it off real quick. So I push this button, and it turns off all the signals. I tried a couple different versions of how to do the redstone here going to this. I tried I don't know what kind of switch it's called, but where it turns it on and off. And that was really messing up my reset button because I needed a way for these to stay on no matter what until you reset it. So this was the best way that I came up with, and you're welcome to try to improve it, of course. Anyway, back to the actual build. So that's basically all it is. It just looks complicated because I had to get everything to twist and fit in a tiny space. But here, let me show you. To reset this, if we wanted to play again, we just had to push this button. And it's gonna reset all 3 levels and close up all the hay bales. Anyway, that's my mega mini game, I guess. It was a long time in the making. I just spent so much time designing this and building it, but I hope you guys liked it. I hope it was worth the wait. I wish I could get these videos out faster, but the builds just take way too long, and I like to do it all in one video because it's kind of fun to see it from beginning to end. Speaking of which, here's a fun before and after look of the area. Even though most of the work I did was underground, it's still a huge improvement visually above the ground, so that's kind of cool to see. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening or night, and I look forward to seeing you in another video sometime. Bye!